continue the stories of the great tzaddikim, and today it's none other than a phenomenal, incredible Iraqi rabbi that lived in the 19th century named Rabbi Abdallah Somekh. He was a gigantic rabbi which everyone revered. He actually grew up, he was born from one of the richest families in the whole of Iraq, believe it or not. And he worked as a merchant at a very young age. And at the age of 20, he saw that the Torah scholarship in Iraq was beginning to wane quite a bit. And he saw that there wasn't so many scholars coming up. So he opened up a free yeshiva at the time, so people could study and they didn't have to pay for it. He came with that concept. And he was only 20 at the time. And in fact, he would end up becoming the teacher of the Ben Ish Chai, and later on become his brother-in-law. And also he was a teacher of the great rabbi, the Kaf HaChaim himself, which was later on. And he was actually one of the 16 siblings when he in Iraq from his family. And he was a descendant of the great rabbi Nissim Gaon, believe it or not. Who also, I believe, was from Iraq. He was from the time of the Gemara. So he opened the yeshiva only at the age of 20, and he became the rosh yeshiva itself, respectively, in the year 1940. Actually, the name of the yeshiva was Midrash Beit Zilkha. And then this actual yeshiva itself was running until the year 1951. It lasted more than 100 years after its opening, which was a phenomenal feat, bearing in mind the population, how it began to wade away in the middle of the 20th century. He actually became an expert of the laws of shechita, of slaughtering respectively, and was also an expert of what is a treifot or not inside an animal, and to the highest degree. He in fact wrote a famous sefer, famous book of the name of the Zibhei Tzedek, which talked all about these different laws, and he also wrote a commentary on the code of Jewish law, the Shulchan Aruch itself respectively. He was a very gigantic rabbi. Even Rabbi Obadiah Yosef himself, who would be born later on, became the chief rabbi of Israel, one of the greatest rabbis. The name Obadiah, I believe, is the Hebrew equivalent of the name Abdallah, which was this rabbi's name, Rabbi Abdallah Somekh. So Abdallah in Hebrew is Obadiah later on. So Obadiah Yosef was actually named after him. That's how great he was. And naturally, he was a teacher. The brother-in-law became of the Ben Ish Chai, who became one of the most famous rabbis of Baghdad, of Iraq, in the 20th century, respectively. So he was a gigantic rabbi itself, of the highest esteem. And there's a famous story that says at his passing, the time when he passed away, which was, I believe, in the year 1889. He must have been about 76, 77 at the time, where they buried him. They found the burial spot, which was going to be right next to the first Kohen Gadol of the second Beit HaMikdash, Yehoshua Kohen Gadol. And he was a great Kohen Gadol, a big tzaddik, and he was buried in Iraq, in Baghdad, I believe, respectively. So they put his plot right next to that. So he was buried there. And after a month, Moshel, one of the governors of Iraq, found out about this after 5 weeks or something, and they weren't gonna allow it, whether for anti-Semitic reasons or not. And they said they're gonna move the body. They're gonna move the body away from this place and put his body inside a different plot from a specific distance away from this, for some reason or another. So they actually dug up the body, and an open miracle occurred. They saw that he was exactly the same as he was. Bearing in mind, the weather at the time was a desert weather of like 40, 45 degrees. And it didn't decompose whatsoever, it was still totally whole. And it was an open miracle, and many, all the Arabs, the different Muslims, they were in shock about this. And they escorted his body, even the governor itself, to a proper fitting burial in another plot, despite they moved it for some reason or another. And it was an open miracle where so many people saw what a miracle had happened to him. And many people converted to Judaism, it was reported, after this incident. It was ended up being a massive Kiddush Hashem, which happened to the tzaddik himself, who was of a really great stature. And as I said before, he was from one of the richest families in Iraq, And he didn't have to open this yeshiva. He could have a life of luxury and everything else, but he dedicated his entire life to Torah, to making a renaissance of Torah in the country of Iraq, the place where the Gemara, the Talmud was established. You could say he actually made the renaissance of it, which will become a flag of Torah scholarship for many, many years later in this illustrious 19th century. And he was really a great rabbi. Rabbi Abdallah Somekh was his name, and many other stories. I hope I can do a part 2 at one stage of him. And maybe I dedicate this Dvar Torah to Refuah Shlema of Yosef ben Edna Bezrat Hashem, to have a Refuah Shlema from any other health problems. So I hope to give talk about another great tzaddik in the near future. Have a fantastic day, guys. Bye.